Who do you have coming out of this quarterback duel of Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship?
Kev, I'm going to go with your guy. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I just have more faith that Joe Burrow is going to be able to expose this KC defense more than Patrick's going to be able to expose this Bengals defense. And obviously, the biggest caveat that comes with this game is the status of Patrick Mahomes. He's dealing with that high ankle sprain. Fortunately for the Chiefs, he is practicing this week. We don't know how effective he's going to be probably until game time, but he is trending in the right direction for this game. So hopefully he's going to be effective for whatever capacity that the Chiefs have him going into this weekend. But I think they're going to have their work cut out against them when they go up against this Cincinnati defense. This Cincinnati defense is no joke. They held Josh Allen and that high-flying Bills offense to 10 points last week. Mind you, the Bengals went on the road and were playing in a snowstorm and looked like a team that had been there and done that. They essentially dominated that game from beginning to end, and they never gave the Bills a chance to get back into that game. And now you have a scenario where the Bengals are going up against the Chiefs again. These two teams already played against each other once in the regular season in one of the most competitive games that we saw from this regular season. And the Bengals made the plays that needed to be made, especially at the end of the game. Joe Burrow came up with a crucial third down conversion that iced the game for the Bengals to seal it in favor of Cincinnati. And it was really just, I wouldn't say it was the kickstart to the second half of the season, the second half season success that we saw from the Bengals as a whole, but it was really just another notch in his belt before we ended up transitioning into the playoffs. And I think when it comes to this game specifically, I think Joe's going to be able to step up to that plate and make the plays that he did similar in the regular season game that we saw between these two teams. Joe, whenever he's in this situation, he's been able to rise to the occasion and really prove the doubters wrong. A lot of people last year had the Chiefs walking into the Super Bowl last year. Joe Burrow and that Cincinnati defense, they proved them otherwise and found themselves in a situation where they got to Super Bowl 56. This one's a little bit different because I think a lot of people are probably favoring the Bengals because of the injury that Patrick sustained last week against the Jags. Even though that Patrick's dealing with this ankle injury, I still believe that Patrick's going to be effective. Granted, he's not going to be as mobile as he typically is, but I think he's still going to be able to get points on the board for KC to keep this game competitive. But I think at the end of the day, when the money's on the line, I think Joe Burrow is going to be able to expose that KC defense when KC needs a stop. That KC defense is not going to be able to get it. And I think that Joe could lead one of those game-winning type drives that seals it for the Bengals to advance to back-to-back Super Bowls. This is one of those games where I think it's going to be back and forth. I think both teams are going to have some high points and some teams, and both those teams might have low points. I think the Chiefs are going to have more of those low points in the game compared to Cincinnati. And I think Cincinnati is going to edge out KC to advance to Super Bowl 57. It's going to be a very competitive game nonetheless. I do think that it's going to be relatively high scoring. I'm not going to say this is going to be a shootout like 38-34 where, no defense can stop the opposing offense. I do believe that it's going to probably be somewhere in the mid to high 20s for both teams. But if I had to pick, I'm going with the Bengals. I think they're going to win this game by the score of 27-24. I think it's going to be the same score that we saw in the regular season when these two teams went at it. And I do believe that Joe Burrow is going to outduel Patrick Mahomes to get the Bengals to back-to-back Super Bowls where they could potentially face either the 49ers or the Eagles in Super Bowl 57. But as far as I see it, I got the Bengals going back to back-to-back Super Bowls. And that's just how I see it.
I mean, I obviously am going with the Bengals as well. I'm never picking against Joe again. I apologize for betraying the fandom for the club that I lead. It's completely my fault. Should have never done that. But I'm going to be bold and say, even if Pat was healthy, I think Joe can do it. I mean, we're talking about the calmest, most relaxed individual that I've ever seen play this game. I mean, he goes up to the podium. He goes under the center. He sits in the shotgun. No matter what level of his NFL career, he's not phased. Nothing bothers him. The narratives don't bother him. Injuries. I mean, the guy tore his ACL in his rookie year, comes back and goes to the Super Bowl, and has now put his team in a position to go to another one. So, I mean, I think Joe has overcome enough adversity in his career to say, nothing's really going to bother me. Crappy offensive line last year. The offensive line played better last week, but in terms of consistency, this offensive line has been pretty crap or pretty ass for the majority of his early career. Then you go and you have the three-headed monster at the wide receiver position that I do not think Kansas City is going to be able to guard. Jamar Chase is a nightmare. T. Higgins is a big target. Tyler Boyd is incredible on third down. Hayden Hurst has been coming out. Joe Mixon had the best game he's had in weeks. I mean, I think I think the statistic was Joe Mixon's second touchdown in the last like 9 weeks or something like that. And I know he missed a significant amount of times with a concussion as well, but just to put emphasis, Cincinnati made sure they focused on getting Joe the ball, Mixon. I keep saying Joe, forgetting that the quarterback is also named Joe. That's going to mess me up moving forward in my points. Joe Mixon is a dynamic playmaker. He can catch out of the backfield. He can make people miss, and he can run you over. He's a very, very diverse running back. Now, when you take Joe Mixon and put him into a system where the offensive line is actually capable and moving the line of scrimmage, that's going to keep the ball away from Patrick Mahomes. That's going to create play action for Joe Burrow. That's going to give the Cincinnati defense a rest in terms of opportunities to improve and kind of get back on the field after long periods of time. Now, we're talking about the Kansas City side. Patrick Mahomes is not 100%. It doesn't matter if he plays. It doesn't matter if he shot up with the cortisone or he makes significant progress as the week progresses. He is not going to be able to do the things that he normally does. If he has to rotate any form of outside of the pocket, whether that is pressure from the inside having to rotate right, pressure from the inside or the outside having to rotate left, he is going to be in pain. Heaven forbid he gets rolled up on, he gets hit. That is going to play a part. And Cincinnati's pass rush has been very, very, very consistent this playoff series or this playoff run as well as in the regular season. I believe that the Bengals have enough momentum, confidence, and talent to go and push past, unfortunately, what happens to just be an injured Patrick Mahomes. But again, even if the narrative wasn't there, even if it was Patrick Mahomes fully healthy, I think Cincinnati's got Kansas City's number. They've beaten him 3 times. Joe is the only quarterback to have a positive record of this magnitude against Patrick Mahomes, maybe other than Tom Brady. But I'm thinking just from a longevity standpoint in terms of what is going to happen in this game, it is going to get worse for Pat as the game progresses. And if the offensive line of the Chiefs does not hold up, it is going to be a very, very, very long day. I don't think this is necessarily going to be close. I think Pat is going to feel the pressure early on. This could easily turn into a 10 to 14 point blowout, in my professional opinion, because I think that Pat is going to make some mistakes and have to compensate. And if they lean on the running attack of the Kansas City Chiefs, that takes away from what Patrick normally does. That doesn't give him the opportunity, the freedom to be as flexible as he is in the open field. Granted, it may create some play action, but again, that pass rush is going to come. They know that Pat's hurt, and I think Cincinnati smells blood in the water. Cincinnati will be facing the Philadelphia Eagles in 2 weeks for Super Bowl 57, in my opinion.